They're going to say what happened. The kids are going to say what happened. They're going to say it's my mom. She beats me. She slapped me. They don't know that they're going to be taken away from you by saying that. They don't. And this thing of, because now what we're saying, Chi, we are seeing parents who are now threatening their children, who say to them, if you go to school and then you say this and this and this is what's happening, then this is what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to send you back to Africa. Now, believe me, that's the worst that you can say to your child. Because
okay, peeps, we still have our wonderful guest again today. My boss. She was previously on my other video, and everyone liked her contribution towards that topic. And today I've got her back to talk about this because she, having experience working with the social services, she would know better answers to this, pressing issues at hand. Because there's been several claims about social services taking children away from African parents, immigrant parents of this color in particular. And you saw some posts that said social services, the UK social services are always after us, in quotes, So these are a lot of things she might be discussing here today, being somebody that has experience working with this set of professionals. Okay, come on, permit me to welcome her once again. Shall we have you on board, please?
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. I'm always happy to come here.
Yes.
Thank you, Chi. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your coming around once again. Meanwhile, there's a claim that children are always the ones reporting their parents to their teachers and their social services in the school. What can you say about that? Do children actually go to school to report their parents to the teachers?
I think for me, what I'll say about that, and there are people out there who would have a totally different view, because when it comes to social services in this country, the perception that people have of them is very bad, which, to be honest, it's not the case, because I've dealt with social services a lot. I've worked with social services, working with families, especially families who come from countries where FGM is practiced. I'm an FGM expert in my local area. So through the local council, I've worked with a lot of families. I've worked with schools, and through social services, working with schools and families. So I do know, and I'm aware that yes, they do take children away for good reasons, but not necessarily just because, for the fun of just taking kids away from parents. And in terms of children reporting their parents to teachers or to the school, let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
When children have issues at home, when children have problems at home, and the problem is, for us coming from other cultures, I come from Africa, so do you, so a lot of the people who will be watching this video, where we beat children, we smack children, we grow up with beating. And when I say beating, I mean serious beating, leaving marks on our bodies, because that's the parenting that our parents knew how to discipline us. Whereas in this country, first of all, you don't do that. You don't smack your kids. And what I've realized, like especially quite recently, when we've seen the influx of a lot of immigrants in this country, people arrive here, they're not aware of the do's and the don'ts that, in this country, what you can, what you cannot do. And then we've seen, for example, there was a family at one time where the mother sent the youngest child, who is not that old, about 10 or 11, to go and pick up the youngest of her siblings from school. Now, in Africa, you can do that. You can send a child to go pick up another child from school, or they can even make their way home. They can walk from school and come home. In this country, you don't see things like that happen. So when a child goes to school, you as the parent, you've shouted at that child in the morning, you slap that child in the morning, or you smack that child in the morning. Why? Because of something that child did. You're used to doing that. You do that. And then by the time that child goes to school, the child is quiet. But when the child goes to school, the child is sad because they are kids. I mean, look back on how we were treated. Were we happy when we were being beaten before we went to school? No, we were not. So if we were happy being beaten when we went to school, you can imagine what it's like for kids here. And when that child goes to school, the teachers are trained to be observant. I've worked with schools. The teachers are trained to be observant. And if a teacher sees a child who is very sad, A child who's always happy, but today they're very sad, they're very isolated, they're very quiet. They're going to want to know what's going on with that child. They're going to put that child aside. They're going to ask that child, are you okay? You're very quiet today, Yema. Is everything okay at home? Because clearly it's not something to do with school, because they've come from home very, very sad. So they want to know what's going on with that child. So it's not the child that goes to the teacher and say, yes, miss, I'm just coming from home. This is what happened to their home. No, it's because of the disposition of that child. You've made that child to go to school very sad, very upset, and sometimes as parents we don't even care that the kids are sad, the kids are upset. You want them to wipe your tears because you're now going to school, you're now going out of the door, so wipe your tears, shut up because you're now going out, and then you keep all smile as you walk out of that door. Why? Because you have now left the house. But that child is still sad, that child is still upset because of what you've done, because of what you've said to them, and then they go to school. And so when that teacher asks them what's going on, kids don't lie. They tell what happened. Oh, it's my mom. What did your mom do? My mom slapped me this morning. Why did your mom slap you? Because of A, B, and C. That child has no concept to know what follows after that. It's because of what you've done.
Okay, because I recalled in my case with SOMTO, the social services case I had, that was last year. You know, when I got a call from the school, they said, SOMTO came into school this morning looking very sad and moody, you know, and they asked him what happened. He said his palm was hurting him. And they say, how? Did he fall or something? He said, mommy beat him with something very hard from the kitchen.
See what I'm saying?
Exactly what you just pointed out.
What I'm saying?
SOMTO did not go to the teacher to report.
No,
they noticed the fact that he was not himself, his normal usual self. You know, so they decided to approach him. Parents, are you listening? You know, for those who normally say children go to school and report to their parents. Can you not see that it is not our children that go to school to report?
No.
You know,
because in this country, Chi, the teachers, they care about our children. Sure. The teachers care about children, and that goes for every child, not just black kids. Because when people, oh, they're taking all our black children. No. For me, I always stand and say, no, I'm sorry. I deal with social services. I know what they do and what they don't do. And being a child who grew up in an abusive home where all I saw and experienced was abuse and beating, I wish social services were in my country to intervene when I was being beaten and abused. I wish social services were there when I went to school with marks on my body. They would say to me, why have you got marks on your body today? Whereas in this country, they care enough to know when your child is sad, they want to know why your child is sad. So if you slap your child in the morning, you give that child good beating, and then you say to them, we're going to get ready now to go to school, wipe your tears, and you think that's it. That child is now smiling. They go to school, they're not happy. You have made your child to go to school upset. They're upset, they are sad because of either what you've done to them, what you've said to them, the abuse that you've said to them verbally, calling them stupid or whatever kind of names, and they go to school. And if that teacher go and ask, maybe it's not even something that happened that day, but maybe they're just sad because of what you've been doing to them or what you've been saying. And that teacher then asks, like what you've just said there, Chi, they're going to say what happened. The kids are going to say what happened. They're going to say, it's my mom. She beats me. She slapped me. They don't know that they're going to be taken away from you by saying that. They don't. And this thing of, because now what we're saying, Chi, we are seeing parents who are now threatening their children, who say to them, if you go to school and then you say this and this and this is what's happening, then this is what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to send you back to Africa. Now, believe me, that's the worst that you can say to your child. Because in this country, trust me, kids, they can't keep things in their head. They will tell a friend. They might not tell the teacher, but they will tell a friend, and said, oh, I'm sad because my mom said she's going to take me back to Africa. Oh, why? Why is she going to take you to Africa? Oh, because last time, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? That child is going to go home. She's going to tell her mom. They're going to tell their mom, oh, I'm sad. Why? Oh, because Somto said his mom is going to take him to Africa. Oh, really? Why? Oh, because the mom said every time she beats him, he goes to the school and tell the teacher. And guess what? That parent is going to come to the school and tell the teacher on your child's behalf. So the best thing to do, don't beat your kids. This is not the country where people beat their kids and get away with it. That's the lifestyle in Africa. And even in Africa, I say this, beating your children, it's not a way of disciplining your children. That's not the best way to discipline. We are just bullies. Parents who beat their children, they are bullies. You are exercising your power on that child. You are showing that child that you are powerless. I'm the adult. I can do whatever I want to do to you. And that's not good. It affects children mentally, physically, emotionally. It affects them. So we shouldn't even do that in the first place.
So generally, what do you have to say about that general notion that the social services, UK social services, are after African parents?
I don't think it's true. I totally disagree. And the reason why I disagree is because, first of all, African parents will see it that way because they're taking their kids. But I'm sure the white families are saying the same thing. The white families are saying the same thing, that social services are after their kids, but they're taking every child. Because why? Their job is to protect children. If our social workers in our country do their jobs, a lot of children will not be experiencing abuse. They will not. Because in back home in our country, our children are beaten and they go to school, they beat them again in school. Who protects the children? So this notion of saying social services are after our children, it is wrong, because I have been in this country for 20 years plus now. My 3 children were all born in this country, and I have never had any experience with social services apart from work. Never. Social services have never come to my house. They've never come to my door. The school has never reported any of my child to social services, because I have no business with social services, because I am doing what I'm supposed to do as a parent, which is to be there for my children, look after them, protect them. That's my job, not put them in danger by beating them, smacking them, and threatening them and saying, when you go to school, you better make sure you don't tell social services that. But we, as African parents, we are the ones who have the mind to leave our young children in the house and go to work. We do that. We are the ones who leave our children at home, lock all the doors, lock them inside the house, and we go to work. Why? Because we want to go to work. Because why? If I don't go to work, who is going to provide for us? But then you put yourself in danger by leaving your underage children in the house, lock them in the house, and go to work. And then that neighbor who sees you going to work all the time, see your children locked in the house, when they now report you to social services, when the police now comes and take your children, because why? You've left innocent young children by themselves, which you're not supposed to do in this country, you blame social services. If you do what you're supposed to do as a parent, you will not have any business to do with social services at all. So they don't take children for no reason. There has to be a reason why they take children. They don't just go to a house and say, well, you have no business with us, but we want to make sure you do. Let's take your kids. No. My eldest is 17, and not once have I had any phone call from police, social services, from school, nothing, because I look after my kids. You make sure your kids, when they're going to school, they are kept clean as well. Because let me tell you, people think it's just abuse, neglect, or whatever. When your kids go to school, they are unkept. Their uniforms are dirty. They don't look clean. That's a concern, a red flag for social services, because that means this family, do they need help? And that's why people get social services all wrong, because they're not just about taking people's kids. They can intervene to say, oh, Chi, the school have reported that Somto has been coming to school, his uniform is dirty. Do you need help? Are you struggling? Is there any help that you need that we can help? That's what social service is there for as well. They're not just there to come and take your kids. They're not.
Yes. Yeah, regarding the parents, some of these parents that usually leave their children at home and go to work, night shift, leave the children all night. Do you think there are any age bracket that parents can leave their children at home, to look after the other ones, and then Am I getting this? Did I get the question right?
Yeah. To be honest, I think, someone has asked this question once and say, is there a right age that you can leave your kids at
Yes.
home? Yeah. And this is the thing that you have to understand. And I remember I saw a program about this on TV last time where they were discussing this. Okay. Now, my eldest is 17. If I want to go out at night and enjoy myself, or me and my husband, I can leave my kids because I'm going to go and I'm going to come back. Okay. And she knows my number, so in case of anything I can be called, but she's mature enough to be able to look after those kids. However, if I have a 10-year-old, yeah, and a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, I am not going to leave that 10-year-old with a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. You leave them in the house and then you lock them and go. Because realistically, this is where the problem is. If something is to happen in that house, who is going to be in charge? Who is going to do something? They're not old enough to be able to say, oh my God, this is what's happening. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then after we do that, then we then call mom. No, they don't have that idea, that knowledge to say, in case of this, if there's a fire or if there's something, or if there's danger, this is what you do. So that's why it's difficult for you to say, leave your kids at that age, you leave them, and then you go to work at night, because that's what some of the parents are doing, leaving their kids. Why? Because getting a childminder is so expensive. So the best thing for them to do is to just lock the kids at home. You can't do that. There is no right age, because realistically, when you look at it, if anything was to happen, you would only blame yourself. We've heard of incidents in London and other areas where fire has engulfed a house. Kids have died in a house. Why? Because they were left alone. They didn't know what to do. They were frightened. They saw fire. They just stood there screaming, shouting, because they are children. They're not going to react the way an adult will react and say, get out of the house. Okay, let me call fire. Let me call ambulance. No, children panic when they see danger. So if you leave your underage children in the house and something bad happens, can you imagine the consequences of that? Because they're kids. They're just going to stand there thinking the thing is going to solve itself, because they're kids. They're kids. They don't have the mindset of an adult. So I think that's why it is very risky. I mean, if you have a 10-year-old, you just want to pop to the shop next door, like I have a Nicer, near my house, I can leave my 10-year-old and just go to Nicer because I'm just going to Nicer. But I'm not going to leave my 10-year-old and then lock in the house and say, don't open the door for nobody, and then leave him with a 3-year-old or with a 2-year-old, even with a baby, sometimes with a baby, and then you go to work. And then you think it's okay for you to just be calling and checking. That's not the point. Because if someone calls and reports you that your kids are at home by themselves, what are you going to do? You're going to lose your children. And I think this is what we have to think about. We have to think that we are now in a different setting, a different culture. We're back home, we can leave our kids, we can go and come, whatever, nobody cares, nobody's going to say anything. But in this country, people will say something. So put yourself in that position and think for 1 minute and say, what I'm doing, if I get caught and lose my kids, is that okay with me? And if you think that's okay with you, then that's fine. Keep locking your children in the house, because one day somebody is going to make a report, and then you come home, you find police and social services on your doorstep, like what we've seen happening quite recently a lot, and then you'll only have yourself to blame. Because once they take those kids, getting those kids back, that's where the problem now comes. So please, I think for me, I would just like to say this. For anybody who's going to be watching, you come to this country, now we've seen a lot of immigrants are coming here for jobs and everything. And I know child mining, it's not easy. Getting a child miner in this country, I stayed for years not working. My husband was the only person working just so that I can stay home and look after the kids, because getting a child miner is expensive. And sometimes that's the position a lot of people are finding themselves in. And they need to survive. They need to pay for their visas, for their extensions, for so many things. And who's going to give you that money? But please don't risk it. Instead, find somebody. That's why it's good to have a relationship with other people, so that if you know another parent who has kids, you can be helping each other, you can be supporting each other. That's where community integration is important. But if you come to an area you think, oh, I'm going to keep by myself, I don't want to mix with nobody, you don't want to mix with nobody, then that's what you're going to find yourself with. But if you mix with people, you get to know other people, you can be able to support each other. Because I can bring my kid to you when I'm going to work at night, you can do the same when I'm going to work when you're going to work at night, supporting each other. That's what it should be. People to look to form, a formidable team so that they can be helping and supporting each other rather than putting their families in danger of having their children taken away from them. Prevention is better. It's much better.
Well, I don't think there is anything else I should add to this. Yes, Yema had said it all. Yeah, even a deaf person could hear and digest everything she had just said about this. Please, let's stay safe. Let's do everything to prevent having cases with the social services. I have had my own pound of flesh and I'm running away, doing everything possible to stay away from them. They are not bad as we used to paint them. Yes, I walked into my son's schools last week and I saw an Oyibo parent, a British lady. She came at 3 o'clock. They asked her why she was there. She said she has an appointment with the social services. Okay, they said the lady is not there. And she said, I don't just like anything to do with all these social workers. So it's not just us alone. Yes, let's not just assume, oh, they are after African parents and their
Let
children.
us forget
That
about that
assumption
idea,
is
please.
entirely
No,
wrong.
it's not true.
Yes,
It's not
I
true. I
totally think that
totally
they are.
disagree.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are doing the right thing for us.
Yeah.
We should just try to get used to when you get to the Rome, they say you behave like the Romans. Just pick
Yes.
the good things about
Yes.
the Roman lifestyle, imbibe it, make sure that it's really good to have a good communication with our children.
It is.
Not the kind of parenting we used to have back home, especially when we have to hit our children, shout all the time. It really affects them a lot, mentally, physically, and otherwise. We are learning. Yes, even myself here. So this is it for this very content. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Yema, for doing this once again with me.
Very welcome.
Yes, thank you. And
thank you
we look forward to having you again. All right,
Thank
everyone.
You.
Bye.
Bye.